Sending data. Sending data. Looks good. Looks good. So I think we here's what I'm gonna do in the meantime. All right. Well, hey, it's Tuesday. It's today's Tanzu talk. You know, as always, not as always, but it's a sub show of me just futzing around. If you wanted to see something more. But there's a couple of things I wanted to do today. The first one is I actually put together a video that we're not going to use anymore, which is fine. Just a little excerpt from a talk that I think Rick Clark and I had back in November with Sophie, who works at Daimler, or Mercedes, if you will. And I think there's I extracted two things from that interview that I think are worth kind of watching and commenting on. Because both of them have to do essentially with this mindset that I see people who are managing a transformation doing really well, something key that they do, which is they think about their job when they're changing how their organization functions to get better at software. They think about their job as the engineer of their organization, essentially creating the architecture of their organization, if you will, and reprogramming it, and going through that same cycle of here's a theory of how the organization should be set up. Here's a theory of how we're going to deploy that change. Let's measure if it worked or not, right? A very engineering mindset to doing things. Now, that's opposed to just sort of saying like, we are all going to switch over to doing things this way. So switch over to doing it. A very project or waterfall driven way of doing change management. Whereas you want to have that more agile product way where you're constantly studying what the marketplace is, hear your organization, what people are doing with it here, hear your staff or customers, and really gathering information on how it's functioning. So let's take a look at the video here and kind of comment on, because Sophie summarizes this in the two excerpts that I had. And what I have here is you all can also see a little bit of the video editor that I use, Descript, which is, it doesn't have all of the video features that a person might want, but it has enough of them. And it also makes a transcript. What's really nice is you can edit the transcript, but let's listen in. So here is, this is a good point that she makes about, again, thinking about how you engineer and architect things, the importance of actually communicating that strategy.
But just setting OKRs, writing them down, does not replace good communication together with the teams. You need to deliver a message. So you don't just do OKRs, you don't just set because you were sitting down with your peers and we as the company leadership team, we think we should do this. It's a lot about the why. It's about a personal engagement, and especially let's say for a strategic topics, and you need to really rethink your communication part. It's not done with a video conference. We really need to think, okay, how do we get this to the teams? And how do we make sure that, say, the most junior person that has stepped into this company is able to follow through on everything that is happening? And that's, I think, one of the biggest challenges that we are all going to face.
So, and by biggest challenges we're all going to face, what she meant there was, this is back in November. So, this was, it's August now, November of 2020. So there was still a lot of like COVID thing and stuff going on. So, what I like about this is she's pointing out that you can't just command and control or waterfall your change management. You have to really think about making sure that people know what your strategy is, that you know what it is, and that you're not just managing by KPIs or OKRs or MBOs by just goals. You're actually being more hands-on as a manager and making sure people understand it and making sure that you are there working with them, really just doing the work. Because if you have these autonomous teams, these software teams who are working very close to the actual business, the actual customer, they need to make decisions every week, if not shorter, or every 2 weeks, depending on your release cycle, about what would be best, not only for their software, but best for the business. And so you need to make sure your job as a manager, as an executive, is to make sure that they know the strategy, the principles, the framework they work in, because they're not going to have time operating that way to kind of be told what it is and just be expected to follow it. Like, they have to be making decisions on their own. it's kind of a muddled way of explaining it, but I think it's an excellent point that she makes. Very prescriptive about what you need to be doing there. Now, the second part to go over that I excerpted from this video, this longer interview that Rick and I had with her, is about essentially, again, it's the same side of this. It's a different side of the same thing of like not trusting in the waterfall hierarchy. And I keep saying waterfall. I'm kind of mixing the metaphors here, but not trusting that the hierarchy will take care of something, but instead setting up your system when you re-architect it to trust the teams and the individuals instead of having execution, so to speak, flow through the hierarchy. Like that's no longer the way that you're architecting your organization. So now let's check that out.
If you're leading people, if you're in a leadership position, I say you should roughly spend around 60 to 70% of your time making sure your people are engaged and be there for them and talk to them. And it's just about checking in. You can also check in about other things, but to not ignore the fact. And that's your job as a, let's say, as a leader of a company or of a team. It's your responsibility as people, actually. And you should hire people that are able to do the job for you, that you don't have to worry that they don't get the job done. One of the things I've mentioned many times in my talks is like...
Now, on this point, that might raise some ire, because it's like, yes, if I could hire the best people, or if I could hire the people I need, then I would have the people I need. It's almost tautological. But to kind of add a little bit into that, I think more of what's going on there is that when you think about your hiring profile, you don't want to hire, and you would do this in a project waterfall hierarchy driven thing. You're hiring capabilities. You're hiring skills, people who can execute and know something. You're not necessarily often hiring miniature business people, miniature strategically minded people. So that's a profile you need to put into the capability. To be fair, you want from your staff is for them to be a little more self-determined and autonomous. So if you don't have that in your current staff, chances are high that you can. You just need to figure out how to let's stick with the metaphor, how to reprogram them, how to add on that kind of capability of being more self-directed and taking on more responsibility. Again, not just for the technology, but for how the business is functioning. And the reason, well, let's watch the rest and see if she goes.
Why is there a lot of hierarchies? Because there is always the fear that the people on the bottom don't get the job done in a proper way. And I think
there you go. So that's the key thing right there, is that we want to set up a system where it is not based on the assumption that people can't do the work unless we tell them what to do, unless we have a hierarchy in place that tells them what to do. But again, if we're setting up this system to operate like tech companies do, where the software is your primary way of interacting with people, is your product, right? A product mentality of doing it. We instead, one, need to shift our thinking. We as executives and management, we need to have this mindset where it's not about trust, but we are creating a system where the staff can make the right decisions. They can be self-directed. And sure, you need to trust them, but you also need to set up your program, your architecture of your organization to do that. And I think if you started with a traditional hierarchy, which is designed, architected around the idea that you can't trust people to do things on their own, then you're going to need to re-architect that some and set things up differently.
That needs to change. You need to hire people that do the job, and they are the experts in doing that, and give them the liberty. Also, sometimes make a mistake, because that's where you learn. And then you, as a leader, can focus on, this is what leadership is about, to take care about the people and make sure you have the right people on the right job. But usually we are focusing a lot about controlling the outcome of a delivery, of an objective that needs to be done, because it's easier than to talk about feelings and emotions and not being present, stuff like this.
So there you go. It's meant just to be like a 1-minute video, so there's not an extreme amount of detail. But the point is, I think it's good fodder for that idea I'm always kind of yammering on about, as I've already done here, is that if you're an executive or a manager going through like transformation, one of the major mind shifts that you go through is that you're not checking on a hierarchy and doing status checks and kind of in a waterfall way, I guess waterfall works here because there's water going down the organization, trickling down, to use that old term. But you're not figuring out what needs to happen and telling that to people in a kind of like very minute task-based way or capability-based way. But instead, you're re-architecting your organization so that the teams, the product teams that you have, one, are staffed with developers and product managers. They're staffed with the capabilities that you need. But they are more in charge of figuring out how the software, what features are in the software, what problems you're even solving, how those problems are being solved in the software to achieve whatever strategic goals that you have. And you can think of the examples that I like to use, like the example of the kitchen people who were told in a very hierarchy-based way, they were told, go work on a project to digitize in restaurants, move menu recipes from paper versions to an iPad version. And management said that will fix things and achieve our goals. But instead, thankfully, the organization had been re-architected to be this more autonomous, bottoms-driven way of doing things, where the team went in and observed what people were doing in kitchens, and they realized that sure, that was something interesting to do, but something that people in the kitchen spent more time on is, as I like to joke, measuring the mayonnaise. They spent a lot of time measuring the temperature of chicken and mayonnaise and things like that. And it would be better if they helped digitize that process and speed up that process and make it more reliable. And that would free up time for the kitchen staff to worry about other things. It was a big bottleneck that they had. You know, I've got a much more detailed example of that somewhere if you go search for Tanzu talk measuring mayonnaise. But it's examples like that where you can see that the management had re-architected the way they think about their organization and how the organization was composed, so that the teams could be more innovative and product-based. So I think she covered that pretty well. Well, so the second thing I wanted to go over is so I was on the second tier. There's a funny pun to be had there for the Cloud Foundry Foundation. I think maybe someone backed out or couldn't accept. So I was on the wait list, so to speak, of talks. And sure enough, they asked me to come do one of my talks. But the catch was they need a 20-minute version. And it's recorded, thankfully, but they need a 20-minute version of the metrics talk that I have. So why don't you join me here in Ambient Tanzu? And we'll take a look at editing that down. You know, again, my theory of Tanzu Talk, or I should just rename it Ambient Tanzu. I think Tanzu Talk is like the more polished one, and Ambient Talk is Ambient, whatever it is, which is when I'm screwing around. But what I want to do is let's spend some time editing this talk, and we will make a new version of it that is 20 minutes. So first of all, again, I'm using Descript, and you'll see like the power of Descript. For this style of, for editing like this, you'll see why it's very useful. So first of all, let's make a duplicate, and we will call this 20-minute version. Let me actually look on my phone here and make sure that it should be 20 minutes. This is a core thing to do in this kind of work is you may think it needs to be 20 minutes. That might be what you remember, but really go verify it instead. Always verify what your memories are when it comes to project stuff. So let's see. I remember going to conferences. That was fun. Hopefully we'll be able to do that sometime soon. Cloud Foundry Summit. Yep. So the slot is only for 20 minutes max. Yep. So let's open up. Didn't I just duplicate that? Where did it go? Well, that's annoying. Let's close this and reopen the view. There we go. Just needed to be refreshed. I'm going to file a bug or a PR, or I'm not going to do anything. Okay. So here we are. So it's kind of chopping the top of my head off there. So what you got here is my metrics talk, which I still need to post. And see, this is the nice thing about Descript. You can see I've put in headers. Here's me giving my bio. So that's a good place to start cutting. basically anything that's an overview. So the first thing, so here's what we're going to be looking at. Where is, let me bring up the little panel here. So here, this is the important thing. You can see that up here, 27.44. 27 minutes and 44 seconds is what we're looking at here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, I think there are some parts in the end that I can just avoid. Zombie metrics, culture metrics, tech debt. So I might take out the tech debt part. Business metrics. I mean, I think the tech debt part is pretty important. Tracing. That's another type. I mean, they're all important. Otherwise, why would I say it? So maybe I'll take out the zombie part. So let's see. First of all, thanks for having me here. That's just a brief overview. What kind of metrics we're gathering, what they have, that kind of. Hopefully, we'll give you a chance. Let's see. So let's start here. I can chop some of this, I think. Thanks for having me here. That's just a brief overview of, as I've been talking with large organizations, the kind of metrics that they're gathering and the mindset that they have, that kind of iterative learning mindset, and really connecting together. Why are we gathering that metric? Why is it useful for what we're doing? And hopefully it'll give you a chance to have a kind of a starter set on your own of things to do. I'm always easy. There you go. So that's just a brief overview. Large organizations, the kind of metrics that they're gathering. Let's see. We'll do this. So see how it edits on the transcript? That's really nice. I've been talking with large organizations, the kind of metrics that they're gathering, and hopefully it'll give you a chance to have a kind of a starter set on your own of things to do. I'm always easy to get a hold of if you're interested in talking more. And with that, enjoy the rest of the talks. They all look pretty good. Bye-bye. Thanks for having me here today. Okay. So you see, we chopped off a second, which is a lot shorter than 7 minutes and 27 seconds, but whatever. So metrics, always easy to get home if you're interested in talking more. So we'll take this, take that out. They all look pretty cool. Just say bye-bye. Boom. We got some more. And then we'll go through. Might as well fix this while we're in here. I think you're supposed to have a comma in there. Thanks for having me here. This is just a brief overview. The kind of metrics they're gathering. Hopefully it'll give you a chance to have a kind of starter set on your own. So what is that? I mean, that's 3 seconds. So we need to do some bigger surgery. So thanks for having me here today. I want to go with talking things like the other people think. Not only what you think about in DevOps, let's see. Thanks for having me here today. Mm-hmm. I want to go over some thinking that I've been doing, more like collecting together of other people's thinking, about how metrics are used, not only when you're thinking about things like DevOps or even site reliability engineering, but when you're thinking about how you're changing your organization over to get better at creating and deploying and running software, building, running, and managing, as we over here in VMware Tanzu would think about it. And to do that, I'm going to go over these 3 types of metrics and just here. Changing your organization over to get better at creating and deploying and running software, building, running. So we'll chop this out. There we go. See, got a few seconds here, a few seconds there. And to do that, I'm going to go over these 3 types of metrics and just go over what I see mature, high-performing organizations doing, what types of metrics they're collecting, and equally importantly, what they're. So. I'm gonna go over, let's see, the metrics. So I think I can chop that out. And then so let's take a look at the meat of what we're going to be doing here. Yeah, so for 20 minutes, you gotta, I think of this stuff as like stage direction. So we'll chop this out because I basically repeat that over here. So not only when you're thinking about things like DevOps or even site reliability engineering, but when you're thinking about how you're changing your organization over to get better at creating and deploying and running software. First of all, so let me make sure. Thanks for having me here today. I want to go over some thinking that I've been doing, more like collecting together of other people's thinking, about how metrics are used, not only when you're thinking about things like DevOps or even site reliability engineering, but when you're thinking about how you're changing your organization over to get. Okay, that's pretty good. So now the bio. you might be tempted. This would solve a huge part of your problem. Well, or a minute problem still. That would be an easy thing to chop out and get like a minute out. But it is only a minute, and like part of giving a talk is to hustle yourself, right? So whenever you're giving a talk at a conference, you got to like hustle yourself. So let's see. First of all, this is me. Everyone calls me by my last name. You can. So we don't need to tell them that. So we can chop that out. Let's see. First of all, this is me. So I'm pretty lucky in that. People before that focusing on a lot of. So I talk with them and research them. Why do I talk about that? I should have updated my slide. This trilogy of books really goes over. You want to transform how you're always saying we're transforming in our digital transformation is what I spend a lot of my time focusing on. And no trilogy here. Okay. So this trilogy book really goes over. So let's do this. If you want to transform, trilogy of books really goes over. If you want to transform how you're doing software, transform how you're doing. Oh, that actually. Oh, I see what it did. So let's correct this. Transform how. There you go. Transform how you're doing software, your own software that you write in-house that you use to run your business, you use as your storefront or facing your citizens, your external facing software. How you rethink about that. Yeah, how you're doing software. I'll just delete that. How you rethink about that software, the technology stacks you put in place to make it run effectively, the processes that you do, the culture that you put in place, all that stuff all that stuff. Do it like this. Boop, boop, boop. You can get all that stuff. All that stuff. You can get a copy of those books for free if you're interested. The little trilogy there. If you go to Kote, and then see, we can chop this up. So see, it's kind of fun to edit this way. The video effect is all choppy and weird, but who cares? For free if you go to kote.io/books if you're into that. Just about tech news and stuff happening in the infrastructure. I'm easy enough to track down if you enjoy my inane prattle. Right? Yep. Boy, that's the truth, huh? That. I also do a couple of podcasts. I'm easy enough to track down if you enjoy my inane prattle about everything. You can just say inane prattle. That's self-descriptive. Okay, so let's take a look. See, what are we at? See? 26 minutes, only 6 minutes. Let's round up to 7, but kind of an overview. So let's take a look at the meat of what we're going to be doing. Metrics. Developer always interested in metrics. Okay, so this is a part like we love to me. It's good to understand the candidates. So I'm going to go over these 3 buckets. This is the way I bucket out metrics, right? So here I'm going to go over these 3 buckets. This is the way I bucket out metrics, right? Again, as I'll get into here shortly, thinking about what are we doing with IT? Why are we collecting these metrics? What's the service or the outcome or the point of this infrastructure, this IT, this software that we're providing? And therefore, how would we monitor and measure it? So there's some great technical metrics, and these, they change over time according to the technology used, the kind of acceptance. So this is the kind of thing that you can really chop out. Because I'm basically telling you what I'm about to talk about, which is nice for a longer form, but for a 20-minute thing. And this applies for like internal presentations as well, right? So think about when you're giving a presentation, you're going to have an agenda slide like this. This is part of why nowadays I don't do agenda slides anymore, because I noticed that I would always like spend a lot of time giving too much of a preview of what I was talking about. Whereas like instead of telling what the agenda is, I should just tell you, right? The section. So what I want to do here is, so I kind of go over this, and first I want to make sure, I'm going to skip over to, they're putting in containers nowadays. So yeah, so see here, I just launch into, I'm re-summarizing, I'm re-saying what I was doing. So then let's go down to, then I talk about tracing. Let's see the business metrics. So now let's look at business. So let me double check this, and I think I'm going to chop most of this out. So in the systems categories, so I think it's fun to make. So let's take a look at the meat of what we're going to be doing here. Kind of an overview. Metrics, measurements, gauges, dashboards, numbers. I've been working in the tech industry here for a long time, since the late 90s. And specifically, I've worked also in the systems management or the monitoring or the infrastructure management. I've been a developer, and we always are interested in metrics. There's a predictable cycle of we come up with great metrics, and we almost ritually have to talk about how inane the previous regime of metrics that we used were. We love demeaning the previous state of the art in favor of the new. And how inane previous metrics. Let's see, just shape that a little bit there. Regime of metrics were. We love demeaning the previous state of the art in favor of the new. And I think with metrics, that's especially pernicious. We might make fun of past metrics, like why use gauges when you could synthesize what a metric means? So really, how about, let's take a look at the meat of what we're doing. I think I'll just chop that. Kind of an overview. Metrics. There we go. So we can chop all of that. Kind of an overview. In fact, you can chop that. I mean, editing is largely about chopping, not just rearranging the order of things. So let's take a look at the meat of what we're going to be doing here. So I'm going to go over these three buckets. This is the way I bucket out metrics, right? Again, as I'll get into here shortly, thinking about what are we doing with IT? Why are we collecting these metrics? What's the service or the outcome or the point of this infrastructure, this IT, this software that we're providing? And therefore, how would we monitor and measure it? So there's some great technical metrics, and these, they change. I'll look at some of the more popular ones. These are the only metrics you should monitor executives. The other section is going to be over what some other business metrics are. So do I really need to say that? It's just like these are the buckets. Nowadays, business outcomes, blah, blah, blah. It's really good. Again, I think culture is how we do things around here. And go talk. If you're not really gathering metrics behind it, it's going to be difficult to know. Okay, so boom. I think what we can do, we're providing, and therefore, how would we monitor and measure it? So there's some great technical metrics, and these, what I'm going to do, let's chop this. So again, hopefully, the instructive thing here is when you're doing your presentation, it's okay to flash an agenda thing like this up just to kind of, and again, this is a 20-minute talk, so normally I would leave that in here, but you can easily just chop out stuff like that, right? Like you're going to get to it anyways. You don't need to go over what you're going to talk about ahead of actually talking about it. Just talk about it. So let's see. Really what you want to do is make sure the transitions work. So let's take a look at the meat of what we're going to be doing here. So I'm going to go over these three buckets. This is the way I bucket out metrics, right? Again, as I'll get into here shortly, thinking about what are we doing with IT? Why are we collecting these metrics? What's the service or the outcome or the point of this infrastructure, this IT, this software that we're providing? And therefore, how would we monitor and measure it? So first, I want to take a look. Now, let's see how long this is. 18 seconds. We'll leave it in there. I was thinking you could even take it out. But whatever. So first I'm going to take a, let's see. So first, I want to take a look at, to the point of that business. So this is the first story that I told about software getting better, and I still think it's one of the better ones. A metric, knowing why you're doing something. I want to give you a very simple example of what I think the point of a lot of transformation is. Yeah, so see, you kind of do need this, because I mentioned like, so here you go, you got this connection of like, why are you doing this? And then I refer back to it here. So it's good to do that. So very simple example of what I think the point of a lot of transformation is, of digital transformation, if you will, and changing how you're doing things, getting better at software. And this is an older example, but a very crisp, straightforward example, especially for people in America. Everyone there, my fellow Americans, will be familiar with the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, the tax people. And this is an example that we at VMware Tanzu, we worked with the IRS some years ago, and they wanted to do a bit of digital transformation, get better at running a part of their business. So one thing is, you see, I'm like hustling stuff here, which if I was doing this for a conference, I don't know if I'd be that direct. On the other hand, why not? Transformation, get better at running a part of their business, or to put it in those Let's see what it's doing. Because I recorded this for a VMUG, a VMware sort of regional conference where it's okay. People want you to be more direct about how it relates to things, VMware related stuff, which is cool. And then change business. So this is going to end with that. So many people motivated. See, I probably could read this. We only need 4 minutes. I'm just not sure much. All right. You know what I think I need to do? Oh, the tracing part is valuable, though. I think I need to find... I could take this out, even though I think it's really... The problem is I don't really offer a metric for this. So while this tech debt part is good, let's see what happens if we chop it. I mean, I guess, you don't want to chop too much. Let's see how this goes. Probably worth putting that into your applications as well and making sure that people are satisfied. So finally, I went... So tracing. What visual? Yes. Now let's take a look into part of the thing about Excuse me. Yeah, I kind of repeat stuff here. We'll see if I need to go in here and do some closer surgery. So we took that out. Now we're in the culture metrics. Let's see how long this is. See, this could be it right here. Oh, 1 minute. What happens if we delete that? So close. Yeah, let's go ahead and delete the zombie part. And then our work is almost done. So you can see we've got 1 minute and 60 seconds left. So what I should do, business metrics, first version. So let's look at, all right, let's really dig into this, because this is, I mean, if I take this out, what are we looking at here? Oof, that is a huge chunk. So see, if I take that out, I could leave the zombie one in. And so is this, so tracing. I mean, tracing is like a metric. See, these are the decisions. I keep thinking I should take this out because it's a bigger chunk. So, okay, let's do that. So I'm going to put the zombie one back in, because I think what we got with the zombie thing is a sort of not specific, but hygienic thing to think about, right? To make sure that you're not tracking a bunch of crap metrics. And the tracing thing, while very valuable, I think we can chop that out. I'm just gonna chop it and be done with it. Sometimes you just got to do that. There we go. Bam. And there we are, just under 20 minutes. So let's see. DevOps technical metrics to start with that I see organizations using frequently. So now let's look at business metrics. All right, there we go. Now we got to talk. I'm going to set it up to export later on, and we'll be shipshape with that little guy. Now, this is actually a call I have coming up briefly. Here, let's convert these to checkboxes, because that will be more fun. I gotta look around my camera. How do I make them list? No, they're already a list. Oh, disappointing, Bear. Whatever. So fiddling around with new camera, extract some. I didn't do that part, but I can do that later. And then let me open up. Let me switch back to my big head. I'm sure you've been missing it. Let me open up this next talk that I want to give. This is, I have literally what they call a tech check. It looks like they're using On24, which is an ancient webinar thing, but I think it's much updated from when I first started using it. And boy, in the late 2000s, it was, I mean, I'm sure it was great for the time, but compared to what we do nowadays, it was a sight to behold. But I want to quickly look at the slides that I have for this. And again, this is it's a webinar for partners that we have to kind of talk about just what Tanzu's deal is with them. So let's take a look at what we are now. You remember, as always, when you open up a presentation, this is supposed to be 20 minutes as well, I believe. When you open up a presentation, it's always good to use the lightbox mode. So you can see some repeats of slides here. So basically what I'm doing here is going over the outcome, the point of people working with Tanzu. And then I'm kind of going to run through what we actually offer there product-wise. What's up with that? Why is that displaying weird? Oh, man. Let's see if this actually displays properly. Oh, no. There's builds. I hate that when I use a slide from somewhere. Let's get that out of here. I do not want a build. I don't do that. Obviously, I don't like it. So I am going to select all of this. And how do I get rid of these builds? None. Animations. Stop. I want nothing. No animation. No. Here, let's go in and see animation pane. No. What even is, let's see what this is even building. Oh, I see. It goes from the previous thing. How do we solve those problems? I mean, listen, this is just my personal preference, but like we go from this slide, right? And then someone else really liked this animation of that. That's all. That's all it does. Whereas just switching, I don't think you really need a transition. I guess it's kind of cool looking, but now let's go back. All right. So then, right, the shift that I've done here, this is a lot more vendor pitchy than I usually am. I tell, my usual ice cream truck story, as my friend Hanada calls it, the point of getting to this here. And then it's basically product-wise, what this means is people will be running on containers. You've got this type of stack for things, which is all cool. And then the way that we're servicing it is we have these kind of bundlings of Kubernetes, so I can just talk about that. And then we also have these two services, and there we go. There's me. So long. So that's good. I think that'll work out well. Well, that is your ambient Tanzu for whatever day this is, Tuesday here. I don't have a cool video to close out with. I'll have to upload one for next time. I've actually been working on a new Be Right Back video. Has some new, I guess I keep saying new. Has some new stuff there. But maybe I'll have that ready for next time. Well, as always, if you're interested in the archives for this show, they're not all this kind of ambient version where I just futz around. There's lots of interviews and much more highly edited, focused things. If you saw the way I was editing that, there's a lot of things that are just better edited. But as you can see, you can go to tanzutalk.com. And indeed, there's a videos link. You can click on there. You can see the archives for all the videos. We also host podcasts there. You can check those out. And if you go to tanzutalk.com/videos, you can get, you probably saw those 3 books that I have for free there and other things that I might reference. But you should really go check them out. Just download those free books, the PDFs from them. And I think as a trilogy, I wrote them, so of course I'm biased, but I think they're pretty great. And so with that, we'll see everyone next time. As always, if you want to see when these streams come out, you can subscribe to us on Twitch. It's just twitch.tv/VMware Tanzu. You can subscribe in YouTube as well at the VMware Tanzu thing in YouTube. You get notified of it. And I broadcast every Tuesday or Thursday in the mornings or thereabout. I forget what the Swiss call it, but I broadcast on the second breakfast, the mid-morning snack. 11sies, I think they call it in Lord of the Rings. So we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.